What's going on, everybody? Christian Ballard, Ballard Sports Media, and sports journalist coming at you with a team preview today. We're going to try to knock some out within the next couple weeks. I'd say all this week, but I have been slam packed at work. Love what I'm doing. And we also got a cruise coming up, the Slobs cruise coming up this weekend. I fly out Wednesday to go to Florida to see my parents, and then I'll turn around and get on the boat on Friday morning and all that good stuff, man. We've talked about it. So, but I do want to get back to doing some of these team previews through the month of March, through April, the rest of the spring, the summer. We got some time, but we got to find time to pick up if we want to get every Power Four team, or at least get as much as possible at this point. I don't know if I could actually get all however many, Power Four teams. Plus Notre Dame, even though they are Power Four, they're just not in the conference. Anyway, so today we're going to look at the Florida Gators for 2025. Do me a favor, hit that thumbs up, hit that subscribe button. Love and appreciate each and every one of you out there. So when you look at 2024, it was it was an up and down year, I thought. 8-5 was a pretty good record. They decided to keep Billy Napier after losing to Miami in a blowout at home. They lost to Texas A&M. They did have a tough schedule. I will give them that. They did lose in overtime to Tennessee. They lost to Georgia and Texas. Both were not only losses in back-to-back in November, but they were blowouts. But then they went on a 4-game win streak and looked pretty good against every team they played. I mean, LSU was 27-16. It was only 7 points against Ole Miss, but they still won it 24-17, and the defense really picked up. And of course, like everybody else, they blew out Florida State. So, and then they played in the Gasparilla Bowl in Tampa against the Tulane Green Wave, 33-8. So it was just a bunch of talk, I think, last year about Billy Napier and his job security. But I personally believe that he did enough in 2024 to at least keep it for 2025. And Florida even came out and said, look, we're not letting him go just yet. We're just not. And I don't blame them. I think their recruiting has been really, really good. I think that um, the talent is there, especially with like DJ Lagway at quarterback. When he took over, I mean, he looked like something else, man. He really did. And I Florida to me is not what they used to be. Obviously, I'm not telling you any new information. They they're not the days of Tim Tebow. They're not the days under Spurrier. They're not anything like that. Are they still a good program? I I don't know. I really don't know if they are a good program. I know that they were a decent team last year. I don't know how I would define Florida as a program. I really don't. I mean, they're not. Well, let me put it this way. If I had to come up with the word right now, I would say they're mediocre. They're not terrible. They're not super great either. They're just not. They are recruiting great, though. They have 19 signees and or enrollees? I guess that's how you would say it. From this year's class, they got Vernell Brown is a 4-star, no 5 stars in this class, but I'll credit them for getting what they got. They got Dallas Wilson from Tampa Bay Tech in Tampa, Florida, is a wide receiver. Ben Hanks is a corner from Miami. A lot of in-state recruiting, which is really, really good. I think that they are winning that state right now as far as the in-state teams outside of Miami. I think if it comes down between the Gators and Seminoles, obviously, it comes down to Florida. So they did get Chad Gasper is a running back. They got a couple guys that are signed of intent. They just haven't enrolled in the school. Evan Noel is a kicker. Moose Tunkara is a wide receiver. Anyway, and then they got some transfers coming in. Tommy DeMan is a punter from Michigan. J. Michael Sturdivant is a wide receiver from UCLA. They got a Southern Miss transfer, and Michael Carway is a safety. Harrison Bailey is going to be a quarterback, trying to fight it out on the field with. I mean, so I'm gonna say this, that it's gonna come down to Graham Burts, DJ Lagway, and I guess Harrison Bailey for that spot at quarterback. As far as the quarterback situation goes, hear me on this. It needs to be DJ Lagway. I believe that. I'm not trying to blow smoke like Josh Pate would or anything like that. I really believe that it probably should be DJ Lagway. When he stepped in last year, he looked pretty solid. He did, and I I don't know. It just, to me, it felt like he brought life into the offense. And he's only a sophomore. He's 19. He was committed back in 2022. He's from the 2024 class. He was the top overall quarterback, top guy in the state of Texas, everything like that. He's just something about his mobility, his arm strength, everything he does so well. It's just really, really good. And I'm not going to sit here and say he's the best in the SEC. I'm not going to sit here and say that he's, some sort of hero necessarily, although he seems to be the hero for at least the offensive side for Florida. I have questions about their defense. I don't really know where to start with that. But I do think that with the right guy at quarterback, I think Florida's offense could take a major step forward in 2025. Now let's get into the schedule. I've talked too much here, but you open things up. First off, everyone in the SEC is playing the same teams from last year in conference, but it's swapped around to where if you had them at home last year, you get them on the road, and the same thing, you get it like so last year they had lost to Miami, Texas A&M, they lost to Georgia, they lost to Tennessee, they lost to good teams, Texas. They won their last 4 games I mentioned. They get their spring game April 12th. Now, what they open with, LIU. I think that's like Long Island University. It's some high school. USF. Okay, they've given Alabama some trouble. I think it's a really good program over there. Could give the Gators some trouble. I think they're going to win a game like that. But then you get back-to-back road games, LSU and Miami. Of those 2 games, let me know this in the comments. Of those 2 games between LSU on the road and Miami on the road, which is more winnable for Florida right now? Got to hear from you guys. I would say probably maybe LSU, just because of how that rivalry is. And it is a big rivalry. I mean, Miami is too, but I'd probably be a little bit more high on Miami. I'll say this. I don't know. I'm pretty high on LSU next year almost. I think I had put them at like 7-5, but 8-4, something like that. I'd probably be a little bit higher on Miami, but I think both teams could have decent seasons next year. Anyway, back to Florida. They get a bye week. They play 3 straight SEC games with Texas, at A&M, and Mississippi State. They get a bye week. Perfect timing because you got to play Georgia and Jacksonville on November 1st. You go to Lexington to play Kentucky. Go to Vaught Hemingway to play Ole Miss. Then your last 2 are at home, big rivalry games with Tennessee and Florida State. I can go ahead and tell you right now, Florida State's not going on the road and winning big time games next year unless they figure something out because they were abysmal last year. They were just absolutely insanely bad. And no matter what I say, it's going to be an understatement. I mean, for real. I look at this schedule, it is tough. I'm trying to give at most, I try to give at most record predictions, like give a ceiling. If they had to get their ceiling, I'll go ahead and put this up, and I'll make this one quick on you guys. I'd say 8-4 is doable. Most likely, I think your losses, you're losing to the good teams here. LSU, Texas A&M, Texas, and Georgia. 7-5 if you lose to Ole Miss or Tennessee. You could easily go 6-6 and lose to both. But I think they're gonna be better than, like, Mississippi State and Kentucky. Obviously, they'll win the non-con with, like, USF and LIU, unless something drastic happens with Florida. I mean, this is Florida we're talking about, and I'm not trying to trash talk. If they come out and absolutely, like, poop the bed, to say, I don't know how else you wanna put it, um, they literally can lose some games they're not supposed to, but I'd say it's a decent schedule. I wouldn't say it's the toughest. I wouldn't say it's the easiest either. I do think Kentucky and Ole Miss back-to-back road games there, even if you were to be favored by the time those 2 games kick off, like, Ole Miss especially, but, like, is that not the most trapped up set of scheduling? I mean, think about it, man. Kentucky was not that great last year, but who knows what they're gonna look like this year. You go to Lexington, that's not easy. Then you could overlook that saying, "Oh, we gotta go to Ole Miss next week," and then you get to Ole Miss. Here's the trap. You gotta go home to play Tennessee, a rivalry game, and then you get to Tennessee. You overlook that for Florida State, regardless of how Florida State looked last year? I'm not let's not talk about that anymore. It's time to talk about today. I just think that overall, I look at this schedule and I just think it's kinda tough, but I think it's manageable. I really do. I think Florida's going somewhat in a good direction. I'm not saying it's the right direction, but I do think they are prone or, poised, not so much prone, but I think they have poised to take steps forward and be a little bit better. So 8-4 is what I'm gonna roll with for the Florida Gators in 2025. That's the at most record prediction. If they screw up, they are looking at 5-7 or 6-6. Probably not 5-7. Maybe that's a bit much, but they just barely, as I like to put it, if you go 6-6, you're limping to a bowl. It's like, "Oh, we barely made it, but we're in," something like that. So, anyway, let me know your 2 cents on Florida in the comments. Let me know where I'm wrong on all this. We looked at some of the talent, they got it. I think it's just the coaching aspect for Billy Napier. I do think that he is a good coach. I don't know if long term he's the right fit for the SEC and for Florida. Um, but I will say that this is a make or break year. This is not a put him on the hot seat or fire him if he fails. But I think it's more like I feel like the college football world is going to be watching Florida in 2025 because of just how last year kind of ended with those 4 games. And just because I think there's a lot of people out there that might want to see them get back to relevancy. I'm not saying they are irrelevant. I mean, they kind of are. I think they're, like I said, they're mediocre. They're like right there in the middle. 8-5 was a good record, but the SEC, you went 500, you went 4-4. Um, Now you did lose to some tough teams. I'll give you that, like Texas A&M, Tennessee, Georgia, and Texas. But I don't know, man. Uh, they did lose to the tough teams, but give them credit. Beating LSU and Ole Miss, that says something, I think, to end the year. And if I think, or if what we hear about DJ Lagway and how great he is, it comes to fruition, their offense is going to be hard to stop. Not unstoppable, not the best, just hard to stop. And you need offense today in college football, and I believe they're going to have it. So I love you guys. 8-4 for the Gators is my prediction. Losses: LSU, Texas A&M, Texas, and Georgia. I love y'all. Jesus loves you. Keep your head up. God bless. Roll Tide from a Bama fan, and we'll see you next time here at BSM. Love y'all. Peace. Good luck, Florida. You'll need it.